Welcome to the DevReady podcast. Joining me on the DevReady podcast today, I have Sharbani Da. Thanks for joining me, Sharbani.
Thank you, Anthony, for having me on this.
It's a pleasure. For those of you that are new here and listening for the first time, I'm meeting Sharbani really for the first time, and I don't really know much about her or DotInfinity, so we're all taking the journey together, and I'll let her take it away.
What would you like to know?
Give us a little bit of background, who you are, and how you got to DotInfinity.
Yeah, to give you a bit of a background about myself, I'm Sharbani and I've been a human-centered designer all my life, I guess, now, for almost 20 years now. And what it essentially means is I help organizations with their strategic outcomes using human-centered design. And especially when you think of design, it's not what you see on the screen, but more around how do you essentially help organizations achieve their goals in a much more holistic manner, in a way that they can get their customer goals as well as their business goals aligned. And with DotInfinity, we do something very similar. We essentially help organizations get the kind of product outcomes and the revenue outcomes that they need using human-centered design thinking, especially when it comes to technology implementations.
A lot of people probably equate that to like product design, but there's a lot more that goes into it in the human-centered design thinking. Before we dive into that, I'll probably just ask, what got you to the path to start DotInfinity?
Ah. To be very honest, I've been in the corporate space for many years, and I was very happy doing a 9 to 5 job for like ever. But then I think once I reached a point in my career where I was like, okay, what's that new challenge? What's that next challenge which excites me? That's when I started to think maybe I should start looking out. I spent my last years as a corporate employee at Australia Post, and that was 8 years of wonderful working. I had a great team, great people to work for, and some really challenging problems to solve, which were impacting literally every Australian over here. So yes, and that's when once I started to look out, I also realized that no, I want something more, something a bit more challenging than working under a company within that 9 to 5 schedule. I really wanted to own the problem solving process and also own the outcomes. And that's what kind of started to get me thinking around this path. And I must say I'm very thankful. I was encouraged by a lot of people who I've worked with in the past, and also some organizations where I was volunteering as an advisor. They all kind of gave me the boost by saying that, I should start out on my own. So that's what started DotInfinity.
Oh, that's good. You had that encouragement and support to help you take that leap.
No, I was just saying it wouldn't have been possible without them.
Yeah, it's otherwise you don't know that you might not have thought you were confident enough or not had enough the ability to do it on your own. So having their feedback and backing probably definitely helped.
Absolutely. Feedback, mentorship, backing, and just that feeling that there are people who have faith and confidence in you means a lot.
How did it feel taking that leap into sort of the unknown? Did you have like existing contacts or clients that you could start to work with, or was it all from the ground up?
It was from the ground up, but yes, with some of the organizations that I was working for, they were some of my first clients, so which really helped. But I think it was a very scary start. As I said, I was very comfortable, having a salary every month and paying my mortgages. And we do have a mortgage. So that was one very scary aspect to think that, I'm jumping into this and don't have any backing or anything like that. So obviously we managed to have some savings as a family, and that's what I started as my backing, and which gave me the biggest strength. But I think one of the biggest strengths was when my husband said, what's the worst that can happen? At max, we'll probably move into a 1 bedroom apartment, and the three of us, and we live our lives. It wouldn't be too bad, but you should give an honest chance to yourself. And I think having that support from my partner was the thing which gave me the final strength.
Yeah.
Start on my own, and since then, there's never been any looking back. There's been great response from the market, but more importantly, just the kind of education that I've received. it's such a high, the learning that I get every morning, and waking up every morning and realizing there's a new problem to solve, there's something new to learn, and then new challenge to tackle. It's been amazing.
There's always challenges and learnings when you're on your own. Stay in your lane and not do anything different, and then eventually you might get lucky and you'll continue along. But you need to have challenges and be able to learn and expand and be able to apply those learnings as well to new solutions. So we're probably a bit similar in the challenge aspect and probably trying to create solutions. So background from my end, we've been doing our business for 17 years. I started when I was in uni. So I had no corporate experience, no background, no clients. We just started a business. And then we've been doing it since. So there's,
A lot of guts.
yes. Well, for me, the worst that could happen was I'd go get a job. I had no expenses, no family, nothing. So I was living at home. So it was less riskier than what you've done, having the mortgage and the backing. And then really like in your scenario, probably worst case was you go and get a corporate job again.
Yeah, probably.
If you needed to. So there's always a fallback, but having the ability to then want to learn and face those challenges and come up with solutions, because that's how you sort of like your brain's oriented is here's these different things. Let me connect all these other dots and provide a new solution.
Yes.
Is the way to get through those things.
Absolutely. And I think learning especially has been such a big part of my career. I love learning new things. And I think that has literally been a philosophy subconsciously for me. When I stop learning at a job, I know that it's time to move on. And that has actually kind of brought me into this path, because when I was there at my last job, I was like, yes, I've reached that point where I'm not learning anything new. I'm solving similar kind of challenges, and there's nothing which is really, pushing my brain that more than it should. So I think that was one thing. And now in this scenario, it's just amazing the kind of learning that you get every day, starting your business, maintaining it, thinking of new possibilities, thinking not just for yourself but for other businesses as well. It's just phenomenal.
Yeah, it's a good place to be in if you can have that challenge and be able to learn anything that you can, because you can. Where some people are stuck in a job like you may have been when you mentioned there's nothing left to learn. So a lot of people are just get comfortable, or they don't like change, so they just stay there.
Yeah.
But then you're not being fulfilled because you're not being challenged.
Absolutely.
So for those who are listening and they don't know what human-centered design thinking is, do you want to give a bit of a brief overview? Because I know there's probably a lot of various definitions and different ways people interpret it.
To me, it's about solving the problems by keeping humans at the center of it all. So problems are, there are many problems in this world, including business, society, everything. What human-centered design does is, no matter what the nature of the problem is, it looks at the end-to-end process by looking at all the humans who are experiencing that problem end-to-end, all the humans that are involved in that problem or involved in driving the solution towards for that problem, and essentially all the processes and mechanisms that are aiding those humans. So it's all about providing a good experience to all the end users as well as the people who are actually doing the work. So that becomes a whole philosophy of human-centered design, and that's why it's called human-centered. And I think that is essentially the crux of any problem-solving process for us. So it might be completely new. We wouldn't know about what the technology is at times or what the process is. And we work in different industries, from banking and finance to, not-for-profits as well. But it's all about looking at the process end to end, looking at right from the time when somebody thought about, or rather somebody experienced or had a trigger towards that problem, to them trying to find out more about the solutions, them opting for a solution, possibly using that solution, and then eventually looking at the end of life of that solution as well. So when you look at that end-to-end process and see how people are interacting with it, how they're interacting with technology through that entire process, and how the back-end systems are supporting the technology, that gives a lot of information on essentially how you can change things as well. You use a lot of different aspects. You use qualitative research, you use quantitative research, you use a behavioral science, and you essentially use a very collaborative way of problem solving where you are not the expert. You're the expert in terms of design and behavioral methodologies, but there are other people in the room, the technology experts, the architects, the product managers, the product owners. You essentially create a collaborative space for them to essentially come at a solution collaboratively, so that everybody is on the same page, everybody is talking the same language, and everybody feels that they have not just feels, but they have actually come up with a solution which is a lot more holistic than just a copy paste band-aid sort of a solution which has been thrust upon them.
There's a lot there to unpack for people, but it's really like in the space of product and software, everyone tends to think, a lot of people who don't understand how they need to design it think they'll build a product, people will just use it, and you're going to use it the way I tell you and the way I've designed it. But they don't consult with the right people, they don't try and deliver the right value.
Exactly.
But it's really, yeah, the software is a tool. It's not, it's a way to deliver value. That's all it is.
Exactly. And what human-centered design does is it unpacks what exactly that value is. Firstly, it unpacks what exactly the problem is, because a lot of times when people think that they're experiencing a problem, what they're actually experiencing is the symptom of the problem. So I'll give you a very bad example maybe, but when you have got something wrong with your body, you might feel a pain somewhere, but that pain is a symptom. It's not the core problem that's happening inside. And in order to find out what that core problem is, you would go to a doctor, and the doctor will ask you a lot of questions, and then depending on what exactly the problem is, he'll point you to the right specialist who can help solve it. And sometimes even that specialist wouldn't be working alone. He will have quite a few other specialists who will be contributing their expertise into that. Similarly, when you look at a business, I'll give you an example from my previous workplace, and it's an example which I quote quite often. The business came to us by saying that we want an account, a digital account for our customers, so that they can manage their work online instead of having to call the call centers, because we are having extremely large call center volumes, which is costing the business a lot of money. So they came to us with a problem that essentially they were losing money because of large call center volumes. But that was a symptom. The main problem was that the customers had a lot of problems in managing their account. But those problems would not have got solved just by giving them a digital account, by designing a beautiful page where they can enter their details and maybe edit in the future and anything like that. What we did was we examined the entire process, and we found that there were problems right from the point of when they felt that they need to do a certain task. We realized that there were problems in their onboarding itself. There were problems in the distribution chain. There were issues which were happening in the actual back-end staff that were trying to service the customer. And there was a lot of confusion in how they carried out their work. There were also a very fundamental problem which would have prevented any holistic solution, which was around the KPIs of the staff. The KPIs of the organization and the KPIs of the staff were in such a way that they encouraged speed, but they did not encourage quality. So, and which was costing them massively, because of speed, there were a lot of errors, and which was eventually impacting the end customer and their own bottom line as well. But if they would have, kind of twisted the KPIs, or rather re-looked at the KPIs to have quality also, or quality and speed would have been a lesser KPI, then that would have actually prevented a lot of cost burnout at the end of the value chain.
I was going to say, so it's really like understanding who's involved in the process.
Yes.
And serving them, and
Yes.
making sure they get value out of what you're providing or trying to do.
Exactly. And that is such a fundamental thought in any value chain, or any service for that matter. If you make sure that the employees who are providing the service, they are getting a good experience, they are happy, and they are able to do quality job, and they are able to be proud of the work that they do, automatically the end customer gets a great product. And what we do at human centered design is ensure that all these humans that are involved in the chain are able to do the right kind of work, the high quality work that they really want to do.
Yeah. And in that example of the call center, I'm assuming the KPI was they must have handled X amount of calls a day, as an example.
Yes, it was X amount of calls. It was, certain duration of calls. Obviously, it's also about number of successful calls closed.
Yeah.
But trying to solve things at a call center is almost like you people have already experienced a problem and you are trying to tackle it right at the end of the process.
Yeah. They're already frustrated. They've gone through issues. They've tried their own steps.
Exactly, they have already gone through a negative experience, so it's much harder to move people from a negative experience to being positive advocates versus when you give them a good experience right from the beginning, or even a neutral experience, like just make things effortless for them, be invisible as much as you can, and those neutral experiences can actually move customers to becoming positive advocates much in a much more likely manner than from negative to positive.
Yeah, because anytime anyone listening, like, or you've called the call center, by the time you're at that point, you're frustrated.
Yeah,
So you're already in a bad frame of mind, or you're annoyed or angry that you've tried so many things and nothing's worked. So
exactly,
you're now at the last resort almost.
exactly.
And then there's businesses now that are trying to solve that problem by giving people like an AI chatbot or an AI support portal,
Yes.
which probably frustrates people more because it's not going to answer my question.
Yeah,
It's not going to be able to get to that point. It's not there yet where it can replace a person in solving outside of very basic questions, like giving it a fact and it can answer the fact for you.
exactly. And I think that again goes to what have you trained the AI chatbot on? Have you fed the right amount of data, the right variation of data, and as many diverse data sets as possible? And that is that you've raised a really good point over there, because with everything that's happening in the world right now, with different types of AI driven technologies coming, and literally every technology vendor offering an AI solution or AI variation of their own, uh, there is a scramble to adopt different types of technologies. But if you look at the data behind it, most organizations are not always ready for that. Their data is not clean enough. The data sets are not diverse enough to give you that wide range of data from which the AI can actually give good informed decisions to the end customer. And then what results in is what you're talking about, very basic solutions, or the AI not really being helpful beyond a certain point. So it's again looking at how do you influence the initial process? How do you start right in order to be able to make right in the end?
It's something that, as a business owner, you need to keep in mind because normally you're
Yes.
trying to solve the problem
Yeah.
where you said maybe a symptom, maybe the cause,
Yes.
but you may lose track of the customer's place in that chain
Yes.
and you're solving for staff.
Exactly. And there's one thing which we have put together based on the kind of questions that we got from our clients as well as different organizations. And we actually talked to a lot of people who are doing AI implementations. And we came up with this responsible AI canvas, which is nothing but it's literally a 3-page document, or rather 3-stage document, which helps organizations unpack, okay, this is stage 1 where I just have that spark of an idea, and how do I assess whether I'm AI ready or not? It's literally a traffic light signal. And then it also helps you think about what are my strategic KPIs that I need to align my solution to. What are certain things that I need in place in terms of the kind of people and stakeholders that I need in place, and who's literally going to own the AI solution. Then you come to stage 2 when you've got the buy-in, when you know that you need an AI solution. Then stage 2 is, okay, what do I need to think about which includes the quality of data that I have, the quality of the overall infrastructure that I have, the kind of human skill sets that I need, and eventually the kind of governance that I will need to have in my organization. So essentially getting you set up in the right way. And then the third stage, when you're ready to execute, it's literally a checklist of, okay, have I made sure that I've got, certain kind of guidelines which are specific to my organization drafted? Do I have an ethics policy? Have I ensured that, there are enough checkpoints from or rather human intervention checkpoints in the kind of solution that I'm drafting? So these kind of things. So we've drafted this sort of a 3-stage checklist, and it's free for anybody. We've made it available free for all organizations. It's available for free download so that they can approach any AI implementation, or for that matter, any technology implementation, in a very thought out manner, in a very responsible manner, and they are ensuring that they are also adhering to the responsible AI guidelines outlined by the Australian government.
Okay, that's a good checklist there available for anyone that is looking at doing this. In our business, we've rolled out a service called AI Ready, and now we've called it based on DevReady, where we try and get people ready to use AI. We're going along the train and going GPT ready, just so people can then understand what we're trying to do. But in that, where we set up automations and we assess any automations that people have in place, the problem we're finding with organizations that want to jump into doing AI and getting some automation in place is they don't understand the technology landscape. They don't understand what's possible. But even more so is they don't have a process or a system that they can automate. So you can't add AI in unless you have a system or a process and the right data to get to work with, because then you're automating paper. Like it's a very complex process then. If it involves pieces of paper, photos and OCR, like that's a very convoluted manual process still. And people don't have the systems in place to have a cookie cutter business where everything's done off a checklist and a system to then bring AI in to assist in those steps.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel this is one place where we can work together as well sometimes, where we can actually go in and we can help organizations or even teams look at, okay, what is the problem that they are trying to solve? And then let's just break that down into what are the core tasks that people will need to perform, and then looking at those tasks and see, okay, is this possible to automate this? Is this possible to not automate? Or is this even worth automating? Because there's a huge amount of cost involved with certain things, especially with AI implementation. There's a huge amount of cost involved, gives huge amount of risk and data security risk involved with that. Are you ready to take that? Are you ready to meet those cost implications? Is it going to be a cost benefit to you or not? Like, have you done a cost benefit analysis? So these are some of the checkpoints by which I think we can inform organizations way better into going about an AI implementation instead of just mindlessly diving into it, spending a truckload of money, and then realizing that, oh my God, this was so not worth our effort because we are not getting the kind of outcomes that we needed.
Yeah.
And I think one very easy way of doing that is having a small proof of concept. How do you build that small slice or proof of concept in as cost effective way as possible before you're ready to scale, so that you can test out the risks, you can test out the customer feedback, you can test out any privacy or any essentially private data risks that you might have, and any governance considerations that you might need to take within that proof of concept before going full scale.
Yeah, and you definitely need that proof of concept, which can either be fully functioning small version of a product or just the core flows. But I think where the AI has sort of disillusioned people is they can do a prompt in ChatGPT and they're like, yep, that's a proof of concept. No, that's just showing that there is the capability to build potentially what you want. But if you're going to look at an AI solution like that, it may take you, as an example, say 20 hours to get something up and running with AI and get something that you can call via an API and the AI does its thing and gives you a response. Then you may spend several hundred hours, which is weeks or months of work, to get that production ready. So there's a lot of considerations that come into it when people think about production if you're in the tech space, as opposed to a business trying to use something. Because how do you make it consistent? How do you have to constantly tweak the way the AI is operating, or give it new training data, go down different avenues to make it reliable? Because unless it's reliable and you get a consistent output, it's not going to provide you any value.
Yes. And that's where having that support from somebody with a human centered design background is super helpful, because they can think of different scenarios which you wouldn't have thought about, different types of edge cases, different types of ways your user is likely to interact and behave with your application. And another way by which people, especially from a content design background, specifically can help is when you're building your model. When you're doing your data modeling, content modeling is a very important aspect of it. And in fact, companies like Amazon and Google actually do involve human-centered designers and content designers in their actual, essentially setting up the information architecture of your data models and your content models in the first place, so that they can really predict how the user is going to interact with the application. They can predict the kind of feedback that they would require so that they can actually carry out their task. Simply because people are not that smart in terms of asking the right question. Like, everybody is smart in their own way, but not everybody knows how to ask the right questions. Even I don't. Nobody does, because to be able to form the right question to ask your AI application so that it gives you exactly what you need is not easy. Just like a very bizarre example, but it's like talking to my 11-year-old and telling him, hey, can you just, keep this? And it literally happened yesterday. There was a glass on my kitchen counter, and I said, can you keep this in the bar? And also make sure that it's in the bottom shelf of the bar. And he just went there and he's staring and he's like, what bottom shelf? Where do you want me to keep it? What exactly do you want me to do? And I was like, okay, you know what? I need to rephrase. And then really think about what is the set of instructions that I need to give him. And it's so frustrating, but that is exactly what every user goes through.
Yeah.
So we can use well-defined content modeling to ensure that how can we help the user write the right prompt so that they get the right outcomes. And that is something which is the whole premise of AI first UX or AI first design, where we help design applications in a way so that they are better suited to the current AI platforms that there are. And it's not a copy paste, left side navigation or a chatbot which appears, which the user is typing prompts and trying to get the right answer, but really failing because they are not able to form the right question.
Yeah, and a lot of that comes down to, I think it's, you don't know what you don't know. So unless you've had experience or you've taken the time to train and understand an area, you won't know how to ask the questions in that area.
Yeah,
So we work with, I don't know, we've probably got 15 clients running at the moment. Every single one is in a completely different industry. I don't know anything about those industries when they first come to us, but over time you learn, you get experience to things, you become I won't say an expert, but you can hold a conversation with people in those industries because you know enough of the terms or the terminology and the lexicon that they use and how to have a fluid conversation with them. But I still don't know the right questions to ask. I just know the questions from my end, which is, how is someone going to use it? What benefits are going to provide? How is this going to assist the business? What's the value it's meant to do? How does this connect to the other part of the business? Or like, you have to ask questions to help the other person. You're prompting them to come up with the answers and then set them on a path to give you the content you need.
Yes.
And then, like in the example with your son yesterday, he, instead of saying, I don't know what to do, he could have said, all right, Mum, there's 4 cupboards. Which bottom shelf did you want it on? So like, that's another way, because then you could have prompted him bottom shelf, and then it's either, but you don't know, you need to provide more clarity yet. That's the other thing. So he knows what he knows, but yeah, you have to figure out how to work together. And with kids, it's in a different ball game altogether.
Oh, kids and teenagers or preteens, as you say.
Yeah, they're in a different world altogether.
I don't know what you're talking to. Like,
Yeah.
every time you have to say something, you have to literally repeat it 3 times before it even registers.
Yeah.
And then after registering, they will then ask 5 more questions to really understand, okay, what exactly needs to be done. And by that time, I've lost all my hair. So, anyways.
It's easy to do it yourself sometimes.
Yes.
So, what are some of the key takeaways or key aspects if someone's looking at trying to improve a process in their business or looking at to develop like some software where the human-centered design thinking is Something, if they've just experienced it today on this podcast for the first time, what are some of the key pillars of how they should approach those problems?
I would say first and foremost is try to involve everybody who's involved in the problem, from your end user to your stakeholders to anybody who's got even the smallest impact in your opinion. Make sure that they are all in the same room. Walk through the problem with them and see what might be the probable causes. So really build that empathy towards that problem, build that empathy towards your end users as well as build that empathy towards your stakeholders and involve them in solving the process. That's really important. And then try to unpack it as much as possible, try to break it down in different tasks and see who all are again impacted. Keep relooking that, keep asking the questions, and make sure that it's a collaborative process from end to end. I know it's a lot easier to find a problem, execute the solution because you're very confident about executing it. But I've always found, even whenever I've had the most experience in solving something, whenever I've taken a pause and asked a few questions to people who might be impacted, I've always learned something new. And that is kind of setting you up for success instead of, failing. The other thing that I would say is be open to failures. And that's such an important thing for an organization to have, having that failure KPI where people are okay to try something, get the feedback, and then discarding it instead of, just still trying to improve and really improve and just, going down a rabbit hole. And that's what, to be honest, most organizations do. Even when they have got a great process, they might have a collaborative process of involving everybody, but they have this thing that, okay, I'll start with an idea, but I'll keep improving it by getting feedback, but I won't ever get rid of it and see what else could I do. Because they are so married to that idea, they're so married to the technology, and they're so married to the entire solution instead of the problem, that they've gone down a rabbit hole, burnt a lot of money, burnt a lot of valuable time, everybody's time, and not really created that kind of impact that they could have by just, discarding that idea and looking at what are the alternatives.
Yeah, it's difficult sometimes when you're down one path
Yes.
and you keep going because you think you've almost found the solution rather
Yes.
than stopping, retracing, or just deviating back to another path. But that's where having someone like yourself or ourselves can come in, provide that alternate viewpoint, ask you different questions that you're not aware or
Yes.
even know that exist. And then that can hopefully bring another viewpoint, and then a thought can be pulled and push you in the right direction.
Yes. And I think that's a very important thing you've raised. Having that third party perspective, that neutral perspective of somebody who might not be fully embedded in your business, but at least knows how to find solutions, or at least knows when you're being biased and can call you out on it and help you, take on a much more holistic path is really important. And I feel that's where external consultancies are very helpful. But as external consultants, also, it's our responsibility to not give that run of the mill solutions and not say yes to everything that the client wants, but rather be that advocate for the actual outcome and the value that we are hoping to provide the client. And I feel that's where a lot of consultants actually fail, because they are always saying yes to whatever the client wants and just helping the client execute it very quickly. But that's not what being a consultant is. You are essentially being a hired labor who's doing an execution. You are not being that voice of reason for the client, or that sounding board where they can sound out their ideas, test it, and validate it or trash it, and then move forward in a way that gives them maximum outcomes instead of bare minimum outcomes.
Yeah, and I agree with you 100% there. You can't say yes to everything because that doesn't serve them. And we've got a statement in, so we work with you, not for you. So that's the model, is we work together with you to improve something. We don't work for you and just do what you say. Yeah. If anyone wants to find out more about yourself, Sharbani, and DotInfinity, how can they do that?
Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn, or we have our website, dotinfinity.co. And yeah, just check us out. We also do certain essentially strategy sessions where we teach organizations or teams essentially how to think about things in a very human-centered way, in a more strategic way. So yeah, I'm happy to help.
And you also have your own podcast.
Yes, we do. It's called Kaskin Convos, and it's just a relaxed bar side chat, talking about any interesting technology story. And we would love to have you also sometime over it.
Yeah, I'd love to.
It's all about, just unpacking what is something exciting that's happening in the technology space. Everything from actual products that people are building to even what goes into making a good product in terms of design, in terms of investment, research, having the right kind of government backing, everything. So we talk about technology and innovation in a very holistic manner. It's always fun to have a drink over it.
Of course. So anyone listening, yeah, check out Cask and Convos, and then I'll be on there at some point as well, I think. Sharbani, it's been a pleasure to have you on today. Thank you so much, and I appreciate the time.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.